I was born in a very small town in state of Gujarat called Junagadh. People don't know Junagadh so much unless I start relating to you what it is famous for. So it's famous for its Gir lions. That's where the Gir sanctuary is, and that's where you can see the Asiatic lion in its natural habitat. So that's where I was born. But that's where I was born. I was brought up in the pink city of Jaipur. That's where I spent my entire childhood and my schooling. My father was in Jaipur. I just went to Junagadh to be born, so to speak.
Okay. If you look back on your childhood, what are the most vivid memories? Was it playing? Was it something else?
I think what happened was both my parents were working, and I am the only child of my parents. So that sort of left me in a lonely position, so to speak. But that also gave me a huge advantage that because of that, I was able to go out and make friends with our neighbors because I had nothing to do at home. And that's probably kicked in this whole habit of mine, which is to make friends very easily, to be with people, to watch what people do, to learn from them, because I was very lucky that all our neighborhood was from different states of India, so to speak. So everybody was same and yet very different, and that exposed me to various ways of life, and everybody was having fun, and that told me that you can have fun in many ways.
It seems like you had several extended families by doing that.
Oh yes, I was very blessed. We were right from my childhood days, from my school, from my neighborhood, my college. There were 12 of us, my friends, who have been right through together. So we were together in school, we were together in the evenings, we went together to the college, we were together in the hostel. Then life separated us because we all went to different branches and different, but even today it's like band of brothers. It's fantastic, yeah.
So when you were in the schooling system, did you naturally know the area or subjects that you liked, or was it a balance of subjects or interests?
To be very honest, Jay, I knew what I did not like. I would almost go 10 feet back if anything with biology B started. I wasn't very happy doing dissections of the frogs and taking the ether smells and stuff. I was very uncomfortable. So that sort of ruled itself out, and with God's grace and my teacher's training, I was doing reasonably well on the science side of subjects. So it sort of chose itself that I will need to be a maths guy. Of course, later on I learned that maths is not as easy as it sounds, but nonetheless. So maths it became, and the natural progression for maths was to go to the engineering branch. I was somehow curious about things mechanical in life, so I chose mechanical engineering. So BITS Pilani happened through an admission process, and we were the last 5-year batch of the campus. I'm very happy that we were 5 years there, because other guys are only getting 4 years of fun. We had 5, so very, very exciting 5 years of BITS Pilani campus.
Then after that studies at BITS Pilani, where did you go to next?
Well, actually, by the time we finished studying, I had enough of it. Actually, yeah, and I was in no mood to do higher studies immediately. Also, it was a fact that I realized that my father would not be able to support me so much. He had already done a lot for me, and I did not want to be additional burden on my parents. They never said it. They always said, do what you think you want to do and we'll support you. But I had to start becoming an understanding guy, so to speak. So through a campus job, we got selected in a couple of companies. Those were not the days when you get restricted to one job, because by the time results would come, the technology was not its frontier yet. So you can go through 3-4 interviews, and by the time you start knowing the results, you've already walked through 4 or 5 of them on the campus, and that's what happened. So Thermax was one of the companies that came to campus. I got job with 2 other ones. In those days, those 2 were the bigger brands, much bigger. But when I came to Thermax, I liked it.
What do they do? What is Thermax all about?
Thermax is actually a steam boiler making company in those days. But it was fun. When I went to their campus in Pune, they were not pretentious at all. They were willing to, and when you see the energy level in people, it was very high. People were smiling. The senior most management was so reachable and affable. I thought this is the place to be if you want to make a mark. This is the place to be. Between you and me, boiler I used to dread as a subject in my mechanical engineering. But willy-nilly I had ended up doing a project in my one semester program where they send you to an industry. I ended up doing a project on a boiler of all things. So some connection happened, and I chose Thermax. They had come up with a series of very innovative advertisements those days, and I felt this is very exciting company. And touch wood, it was my instinct at that time, but it proved to be right. It was a fantastic place to work.
Now, how many years did you spend there?
26 years I worked with Thermax.
I think you made a good, great choice.
And it was, yes, I agree. I wish to all passing engineers that if they have to start their career, they get a company like that I had at that time.
That's great. What, when you were the last position in Thermax before you came to SKF, what was your role at Thermax?
Yeah, when I left Thermax, I was the global head of business for them for their steam boilers and vapor absorption cooling business. I was also the member in charge for the new businesses that we were starting off. So new business in the area of carbon credits. We had also mooted an idea that rather than selling the equipment to our customers, let's just sell the output. So no longer they would buy the equipment from us, but they'll just buy the output of the equipment. So they were because that's what they were interested in. They were interested in getting the steam. They were not interested in the equipment that was producing it. So that's another business that we started off at that time. I was also head of all the foreign subsidiaries of Thermax at that time, because all the exports that was happening was through subsidiaries, and most of my businesses were exporting.
Well, it looks like well above a full plate of things to do, and yet you chose to look at an area of that affects the climate and our environment. How did that start? I mean, was it your initiative or something else that occurred?
Thermax had this unique thing about positioning itself as a different company to its customers' problems. We were not a me-too company, and that's what we were trained to think. The environment was like that. We were trained to think like that. It is all right to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. It's perfectly all right. But be innovative. Use every single piece of knowledge that you have got to leverage it to deliver a higher value to your customer. And that's the environment in which I was born, so to speak, as a professional. And that allowed me to think beyond my borders. As I started to look into the issues, meet customers, see their problems, create solutions for them, I realized that there are issues because energy costs were increasing, and they were creeping up silently, so to speak, in the balance sheets of the customers. And suddenly there were many industries who had their cost number 2 as energy cost number 3 as their energy cost. There are also industries which are cost number 1 as energy cost. And I said, whoa, this is an area where people need to pay attention. What can we do? And that's when this whole talk of alternative energy, what can we do with alternative energy? What are the issues with energy in terms of its generation as well as its consumption? It started to foster as a thought in my mind, and luckily, as luck would have it, somewhere back in 1999, I was selected to head a joint venture Thermax had with a US company, which was in the field of, which was an energy services company, which they had floated together. That actually molded me as an energy efficiency professional. It exposed me to the thought process of energy efficiency. It gave me exposure to the leading thought makers of the world, because the US partners were very keen that I learn the tricks very quickly and use it to leverage for our business here. I would say those 3 years were the real formative years for me to become what I would call as energy efficiency professional, so to speak. to understand the deep-rooted issues of what works, what does not work. And that's where the journey began. I liked the subject immensely, and then as we started to evolve at that around that time, 98, 99, 2000, when suddenly this whole understanding about the global warming started to emerge, and I could clearly see the connection between the two, and that gave me a much larger cause to get hooked onto and do something about it, and that's when it started.
The conventional wisdom, at least of what I have read, is that people that are running businesses are so focused on the bottom line numbers that the luxury of thinking about things that you're saying which are critical, the luxury of those thoughts, there's no time for them. But somehow you made time, you also got results, and you also were quite visible, so allowing you to come to SKF after that too, in a very, very, very good role. What did you do to make that happen?
I would like to submit the answer in two halves. One is that I must say that the environment which I had allowed me to think of profit as a deliverable beyond just a set of numbers. It was important for us not just to deliver the numbers, which obviously is true for any commercial organization, but also how we will do it. It was equally critical. And if, as and when we came up with an idea of how, it was not about only the value system and practices, which was very, very critical to us to do the way of doing business, but also allow the thinking to go a little beyond what's obvious for the business. So, for example, I was talking about the steam hire business where we'll just sell the output. When we configured that business, we said, we will not sell steam that's not green. Now, the easy thing to fall for was to go for the coal-based steam, but we didn't do that. So, I think the company's formed, that's one part. Second, I understood as I started to learn about P&L balance sheets in the later half of my career, I realized that there is a way when green makes sense. It's not that green is expensive, which is the normally held notion. Actually, it makes sense because it saves money, and it saves definitive amount of money. It takes waste out of your work. It builds your brand. It helps you to look at alternatives. And if you combine these three, why wouldn't a person who's in charge of a profit and loss account look at it? He must look at it. And that's what my understanding, and every time I put that to test, it came true. So that's what happened.
And then the transition to SKF, to talk about that a bit, could you give just an idea of what your current role is? And SKF is huge. Just a feeling for how many employees, locations, that type of thing.
I switched to SKF in 2009, and it came about purely from a chance call from one of my friends who said, why don't you look beyond what you're doing today? And at the end of the day, you're still one of the senior guys. You're not the senior guy in the company. So why don't you come and do this something? And I was really reluctant. I was very happy with what I was doing in Thermax. He said, Shishir, sometimes it's worthwhile to step out and you have always been a guy who stepped out. So why are you now this one, why are you saying no? And I said, okay, I get the message, what you're saying. So that's when it started. As one thing led to another, and then very quickly formed this idea. What was very critical for me at that time was the fact that Thermax's value system and SKF value system resonated. There was hardly any difference. I could not see any difference between the two companies. One was an India headquartered company, and that was a big giant multinational out of Sweden. But in value system terms, it was exactly the same. And that was a big comfort for me. So I said, if that is okay, because at CEO position, those could become the challenges to overcome. I don't think anything else I cannot overcome. And in between, in 2007, Thermax has sent me to Harvard to do a advanced management program, which really exposed me to the modern management techniques, the way of thinking. It really changed me a lot as a manager and a leader, and that helped me. So that came together, this opportunity came, and that's when I came to SKF. In India, SKF is 3 companies. So as country head for India, I am responsible for all the 3. SKF India Limited, which is the public face of SKF, which is 50 years old as we speak, and it is quoted on Mumbai Stock Exchange. this is the company that, in a manner of speaking, everything started with. There is a history that goes even before this as a trading company back in 1923 when SKF came to India. But its manufacturing footprint in this very campus we are sitting started back in 61, 62. So we have about 3,000 employees now, spread across 3 companies. We have 6 locations for our factories across India. Fundamentally, we, as I say, we make products that reduce friction and that make movement possible.
And is it primarily focused on the auto industry, or is it varied?
No. So as I said, we make products that reduce friction and that make movement possible. So automotive is a very natural candidate, but practically every aspect of industry, because if you can think of it, if you cannot move things, you cannot do much. You know, whether it is in form of a pump, whether it is in form of a compressor, whether it's in form of a turbine, whether it is in form of a material handling system, whether it's a conveyor system, and conveyor system for all kinds, material transfer systems in steel plants, paper making and moving systems. So every time any movement has to happen, you need to reduce friction, to reduce energy.
But if you're I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. If you're a component supplier to many different industries where your part has to fit into a broader system, you essentially have to understand what the downstream providers have done, and then design your products accordingly. Is that fair?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. What has really helped us is the fact that we call it our knowledge. And where does our knowledge stem from? It stems from what I call as amalgamation of 3 dimensions. One is our geographical location and reach and presence. And stay with me for a minute to help you explain what I mean by that. So today SKF provides a solution in the United States. It also provides a solution in Japan. It also provides one in China and also in India for the same application. So I understand that application in different environments as to what's happening. So that's one part of it. So geography is one dimension. The second dimension is a technology of reducing friction, tribology, which are solution making capabilities across our 5 platforms. So we said, I understand how things happen. So there's segments, there is industry segments, then there is geographical reach, and the third dimension that we bring is our 5 platforms. When I say platforms, we are known as a bearings company, but we are much more than a bearings company. We make seals that are essential to bearings life and performance. We make mechatronics. That's a very interesting branch which marries mechanical engineering with electronics. So today when you punch an instruction onto a panel, an MRI machine moves in a certain direction and adjusts itself. That movement is managed by something that we do. So mechatronics is that arm of our business. We have an arm which looks at lubrication systems, because all these parts, when they move, they need lubrication. And we make systems that push the lubricant into these systems in a very measured and metered way, so that you have enough of it, not less, not more. That's the 4th part. And the 5th, very interestingly, is as we provide, as you're rightly saying, as we provided these components to various industries, I have this theory which says that almost always bearing is the last part to fail in a mechanical system, but it is the first to be noticed. And that gives us a huge play to say, if I can somehow monitor what's happening to my bearing, I can actually tell you what's happening to your plant. So we have translated that into a full service offering from our end. So there are a whole host of vibration monitoring, noise monitoring, performance monitoring systems, maintenance programs that we run for our customers, that allows them to then focus on improving the uptime of the plant. Because if I can prevent a breakdown, I have done a lot to save his downtime.
And also makes it more of a consultative selling process rather than selling a component.
Absolutely.
Okay, which benefits the company.
Which benefits, and we are the only company in the field which can do this, all these 5 things together. There are bearing companies, there are lubrication companies, there are seal companies, there are services companies, but there is no one company that does it all. And that puts us in a unique position to then look at a customer very holistically.
So by doing the system, the monitoring system, have you also diversified from the friction part of energy efficiency to other parts of energy efficiency and monitoring them?
We have essentially focused ourselves on what I call as mechanical energy. We haven't gone to the thermal energy part of it at all. But on the mechanical energy side, we really make sure that the movements, whether they're rotational, radial, or they are linear, we take care of them to reduce and minimize the friction. Then that knowledge goes beyond and say, for example, how do you define or design a very efficient gearbox? Yeah. Or for example, SKF pioneered, we all heard about this when Airbus came about this fly-by-wire technology. We were the guys who actually started it. Yeah. So
now let me go back to the youth section and finish with that. I think we have a pretty good view on your company and what you have accomplished also, or a little bit of it, the accomplishments. Now let me go back to someone who's growing up in India, and I'd like to pose some of the points that I hear in the classes and see how you would respond to it. So the first thing is that, how can I be like this person is the topic, or how can I be more like a role model that I'm seeing? They had something that I didn't have. They had, they had money. They had people to support them. They had tutors and all those type of things. How would you counteract that, or how would you react to a statement like that when somebody says you need all these prerequisites before you can even imagine success?
Let me share it based on my own experience. We were a very low middle class family, both parents working. We had one bicycle at home because we couldn't afford two. So there are days on which I will go on bicycle, my father will go walking. There are days on which I'll go with my friend and my father will go on a cycle. But the fun never stopped, because we never allowed that situation to overwhelm us, saying, oh, we don't have anything, we are up against odds. It didn't matter. It was our house was full of laughter. I tell my daughter many times, I said, look, today you got all these gadgets with you, the phone and the internet and the computers and the televisions. We had none of that. I still remember we had a small bush radio at our home. Yeah, and listening to that song together as family was part of the fun. So I don't think I started with a privileged background, so to speak. What I did see, however, was the value system that my parents gave me. I saw in my father highly principled operation of life, sometime to the annoyance of others. But he was very clear, this is my principle and I'll stay with it. And he stood with it when times were adverse. And that sort of left an impression on me, saying, he really means what he says. And I thought that was a good idea, to mean what you say. My mother, on the other hand, was very ambitious. She would always try to do new things, be a little better at what she was doing. She came from a very small village in Gujarat, but she went out, she studied, she became a double graduate, she taught in a school, she went on to become a principal. For her, life was all about being better tomorrow than you are today. I saw that happen with both of them. I also imbibed one more thing because of my childhood that I was earlier describing. I thought every human being has something to give you. You can learn something from everybody. Everyone will tell you something about that you don't know about life. That got sort of imprinted in me quite early, and I've always made it a point in my life that if I meet somebody, I'll quickly try and learn something from them by observing them, and I coined a term called active people watching. We meet many people in life, we interact with them, but we don't actively watch them. And I do that very consciously to actually see what's the thought behind what they are saying, how do they think, how do they react to a situation, how do they proactively do things, how do they behave, and learn if something can be put into my life out of that interaction. Moving on, I think strong value system, being with people, and this also meant that I was very open to change. These are the things which I can do as a human being. I have never copied anybody in my life. Yeah, I've been inspired by people. I've been inspired by Gandhiji, but I could never be him. I have to be myself. to be successful. And that's what my message to the youth is: be yourself, be true to yourself, live with your values, don't give up in the time of adversity, be open to change, learn from everyone. I don't think this is something that anybody comes gifted with. These are the approaches that help me. I hope it helps some more.
Fitting. May I ask the last question then? If you had a set of youth sitting here and they were asking, how can I best get prepared so I can have a balanced life, which many are seeking. I do accomplishments, I'm a good engineer, I'm a good doctor, I'm a good nurse, what doesn't matter. I am good at whatever I do, but I'm also taking part in making sure that I don't harm more than I do good for society. Could you offer some advice on how they should prepare for that in school or in either way, so they can have a balanced life after that?
I think the way our educational system is, the way our societal system is, the way we parent our children, there are a lot of time that we spend on telling them how to do things right. Mm-hmm. And I learned early on that what's more important is to do the right things. As it is important to do things right, I think we need to spend a proportionate amount of time on doing right things in life. So that's one thing that I would tell the youth, saying focus on what you believe is the right thing to do. It is equally important to do it right, but first of all, get your head around the fact that this is the right thing to do. That's one. Two, you will succeed at what you will succeed because you are good at it. Mm-hmm. The field doesn't matter. That's right. The three, be humble to know that your environment, your colleagues, your friends, your parents, your influencers, they all contributed to make you to be where you are. You are there because all of them at some moment or other contributed to your being. And be open to learning. If you do these things, I'm sure success will come your way.